everybody, George Riles, Last Chance Archery. Today we're going to go through all things stance. User Takudo Shinji 2445 requested, show me everything stance with a view of the feet. So here we go, just for you, Takudo Shinji. All right, the basics of stance. Essentially what we're doing is we're orienting our feet in a way that we can be vertically stable. There's one tiny wrinkle in that, is that when you add 15 pounds of bow on the end of a lever, it starts here, then you set it up, you pick it up and pull it back. You're constantly changing shape and gravity throughout the course of shooting. So we have to find a stance that we can get ourselves in that's going to keep us relatively vertically stable for what it is that we're doing. Now, most people look at stance as if it is a fixed, solid thing that is always the same, but it's actually something that needs to be changed based on situation. First, the basics. So, when you get set up, if you just set your feet square, this is how I teach new people. Set your feet square, lined up with each other about a shoulder width apart, half a step forward, and then just turn your toe toward the target. That's a good, and I kind of march my feet in place just to get my shoes right and everything. So that's kind of a good starting point that gets me set up to the target. Now, a lot of times when I'm shooting outdoors, I'll hold my bow in my hand when I walk up to the stake. And I'll walk up to the stake, get myself set, and I'll kind of hold my bow sort of just away from my body a little bit while I'm getting my feet set, and then I'll park it on my hip so I can load it and go through my whole procedure to get started with the shot. So that works great when I'm on the level. So here's what we're doing. When you are unstable vertically, let's say I've got my feet set up and I pull back and I can feel myself being loose this way. The way I can fix that is just move my big toe a little bit farther away from my body, move that back foot a little farther away, and different kinds of shoes can create or cause problems with steadiness. Like these shoes that I have on here, they're pretty cushy and they're not super stable. A good hard sole hiking boot or cowboy boots, those are super solid on the floor. But these are a little spongy. So what I do when I'm wearing spongy shoes like walking shoes or running shoes or, just those super cushy, comfortable Crocs, those things, I just make my stance a little bigger. So that way, with it a little bigger, I've got a little bit of mechanical leverage against the vertical instability, right? So if you're loose back and forth, you just kind of open your stance up just a little bit more and then try another shot, and you can edit it along the way until you figure out where you need to be. After a little while, just holding your bow, being familiar with the kind of footwear that you have, you'll just fall right into the correct stance as you go. Now there's a few modifications that usually have to happen. Let's say I'm shooting a fairly extreme uphill shot. So I probably won't use that same stance for an uphill shot because my gravity is going to be different when I hold the bow up here. So in most cases, I walk up to the stake and I look at the target and I go, oh wow, look at that. That's 45 degrees uphill, 60 meters. Well, what am I going to do with that? Well, I'll get like this and kind of hold my bow up at the target and then feel it and go, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And then I load my bow and get ready and then draw the bow and then shoot. So whether if you're shooting extreme uphill like that or downhill like that, you're going to change your stance based on what you need to be upright. Now there's another thing you have to do. You have to make sure that you're pointed at the target. Now normally I reserve this tip for people who have bought a lesson from me or in my workshop. But I'm going to show it because we're more than, Derek, we're more than 20 seconds in. Yeah, we're more than 20 seconds in. So most of the people have gone on to the next video. So I'm going to show you a super cool trick. You're shooting 3D or field archery, and you have these targets at field archery or 3D. People say, oh, that 80-yarder at Yankton shoots low and to the right. The reason that it shoots low and to the right, that particular target I'm talking about, if you walk down to the target and turn around and look back at the shooting stake, you'll see what's going on. In the Field Manager's Handbook, they say, use terrain to make the game difficult. So they'll do things like set the shooting line slightly askew to the target. They may shift the centers a little bit to make it somewhat difficult. So here's the antidote for that. When I walk, I'm going to pretend like you're the target, right? And when I got my bow and I walk up to the target and I get set, I do this sly little thing. I pull my arrow out and I touch it to the top of my thigh like this. And you see the arrow points toward the target. I make sure that it's parallel with the ball of my foot because that signals the direction that I'm in. So let's say I walk up to the target. You're the target. And I walk up to the target and I get set and I do this. Well, the arrow isn't really pointing in the direction of the target. So what I'm going to do is change my stance, just rotate that until the arrow is pointing at the target, and then I put it in the bow. So because you hung out for a little while and you stayed for this tip, don't show it to everybody in your group. If you pull your arrow out and go, it's going to be obvious what's going on. So be a little sly about it. Don't spread it around. You just pull it out, touch, fix your feet, and then load it in the bow, and nobody will know what you're doing except for the few people that stayed in this video beyond 20 seconds. So there's your little treat for doing that. So keeping your stance straight, you'll adjust your stance for the situation. And if you're wearing soft, spongy shoes, you may need to use a little wider stance for stability, and use your first arrow to align yourself with the target. So as everything springs apart, it springs at the X-ring, not off center to the X-ring. So that's it for today and archery stance. I'll see you next week on Thing of Week.